Well, Kate, it's so good to have you on video, talking to you face to face. We talked, I don't remember when, a few years ago, whenever your book was released for my podcast. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Mm-hmm. I do. It was interesting. It was good actually, getting used to talking to people and engaging with them on my material.
Yeah, well, and I will say I started this magazine because I saw, I mean, I was a writer, but I was interested in creating things on purpose. And it seemed to me as a writer, the page is blank. You can't create, you can't really create accidentally. You have to make a choice. You have to be a deliberate. And I got very interested in the relationship between what it takes to write a story or a book and what it takes to lead your life, that it was essentially the same process. You could bring the same sort of deliberate focus to your life that you have to bring to the page. You came at it differently. You came at it from sort of the life first, and then you came to the book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, writing is what I do. I love writing and I love reading, as so many people who write do and have the opportunity to write do. But it was important to me that I wasn't writing something that I knew academically or something that I had thought a lot about. It had to be really authentic. And that was all that I wanted to convey with everything that I was writing. It was interesting. I had moments where I wouldn't write anything for weeks, and then I could, in the space of 5 or 6 hours, get several chapters out.
Wow.
And so I said, okay, this is how it's going to be.
Wow.
So when people say, oh, what's your process? Like, I don't have a process other than when I am able to, I put onto the page what my experience is. And that's how I want to continue to be as long as I am able to do this.
That's critical. So you're a teacher at core, I guess like a spiritual teacher. You try to help people live their lives sort of authentically, creatively. But, and I so encourage this approach, you still are writing about your own experiences. And there's nothing more authentic, I think, than what you've actually lived, the thing you've actually been through. And maybe you can talk about this, learning to see the universal value in the particular of your specific relationship.
Yeah, and for me, I live what I call a God first life, and I don't mean that in any sort of religious sense. But I will connect. Okay. Bill, I was having a conversation with someone the other day about, God, the voice of God, and how do we know when God is talking? And I said to the person that the thing you want to know about the voice of God is that God is speaking to you as an individual. So if you're ever in doubt about, for those of you who believe, some people may not believe, but that's immaterial to what I'm saying right now. If you are ever confused, if you're a person of faith about what the voice of God is, it's whatever is being communicated to you and how you are being encouraged to be the best version of yourself. And so I said to this person, could you imagine if everybody on the planet had that approach for the type of world that we would be living in? So the voice of God is nothing to do with people telling other people what to do. And that's how I live my life. I base everything on that principle. I can't begin to imagine what's going on in Bill's world, what Bill's feeling and what Bill's thinking. That is a fiction. It's a fantasy. It comes with its own cognitive dissonance.
Right.
But I know what I'm feeling and what I do. And I don't really work with clients like that anymore. I don't have the time. But when I did, one of the things I would say is actually the truth of any experience that we're having in life, any education we're deriving, boils down to our individual experience of that thing. And we are able to adjust our experiences as we adjust. I talk a lot about our emotion. I kind of feel, Bill, that I'm going to go off in 100 different directions.
That's okay.
I'm trying to stay focused on this question, but it starts and ends with you, because that's how it works. You see, creation is finished. We just have these roles that we're playing in it, and our duty is to stay focused on the job that we've been given to do.
That's right.
And so that's why everything, and I get that a lot from Neville, he talks about the Bible being our individual autobiography. So it always comes back down to you first, you last.
Yeah, and the thing I've learned from writing about my own experiences, that if I tap into the universal, so I'm a 56-year-old white guy from America, blah, 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 blah. I have all these identities, but I can't write about that. I write about something within me that I believe exists within everybody. Whether, the desire to create, the desire for connection, the desire for love, the feeling of success contrasted against failure, all these sort of universal things. And I'm always able to connect to something that because I'm the only me. I'm the only one who's lived my life. And so I to be able to translate it for anyone theoretically means that there's something within me, and the principles that you teach, you can't teach them unless you believe they apply to everybody, that you're not special, that you're not uniquely gifted with this ability to manifest or whatever it is, that it absolutely is applicable to everybody, or else it's useless, right?
Yeah, because this is the thing that connects us. And isn't it beautiful? You just described yourself. I describe myself very differently. We can all, sit down and say, right, this is who I am. This is my background. This is my age, my sex, my whatever, my level of education. But what are we doing here? What is this all about? What's it right for? Why are we together if we're all so different? And actually what we come to understand is that we come from a unified whole, what I call absolute causation, this one source, which has an intelligence all its own that we come to know as we engage with it as an individual. And somehow we discover we discover our unity through our individuality. Yes. It's such an incredible concept to get your head around. It's pretty exciting stuff.
I interviewed James Lee Burke. He's a suspense novelist, crime novelist. And I knew he didn't outline his fiction from the first paragraph I read. He's a very famous crime fiction. He's an interesting guy. So I did an interview with him. And I said, you don't outline, do you? He said, no, I don't outline. I don't have a plan. I just start writing. He said, look, whatever you believe, you better make peace with whatever God you pray to, because when you're writing, you can't do it on your own. Don't think you're doing it on your own. You just don't. You just don't. And any writer, fiction writer, poet, worth their salt, knows they can call it their muse, call it the source energy, you can call it God, whatever you want, but you know that you're listening more than thinking when you're writing. I don't see it as thinking. I think I'm paying attention, but I don't think I'm thinking. Does that language work as a differentiation between listening and paying attention to thinking? Does that resonate? That's something new I'm finding. I don't know. What do you think?
So what are you describing?
I'm describing the creative process. While I'm writing, I'm not thinking, I'm paying attention to something. Thinking feels like something, working with something old, whereas creativity is paying attention and then inviting in the new thought, the new idea, or following an idea. Does that feel like a differentiation?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for any writer, whatever their process, that's when their best work gets done. I am a complete adherent to the idea that we get, as human beings, we have the greater part of us. Some people call that mind, some people call that soul. I call it our divinity. And that's how we're meant to live. That's how we live optimally, right? When we're being communicated to by this thing. Right. And so when you are paying attention and you're noticing and you're translating what you're noticing, that's where the real work is done, when the most honest work is done, when the most meaningful work is done, because, Bill, we all actually recognize that language. We might not understand each other's human languages, but we all recognize the language of the metaphysic, as it were. Yeah. Or the metaphysical.
Let me ask you this. So people are watching this. Some of them know what we're talking about. They're familiar with it. Maybe some aren't. But it is about saying, look, you get to create the life you want to lead. Like life isn't something you just react to necessarily. It's something you can create on purpose, just like you can write a story on purpose. And if someone said to you, yeah, I want that, man. I'm tired of just feeling like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's just, I don't like this job or relationship. Aside from buying your book or one of Neville's book, is this something they could do with themselves? What would you say the first step they would want to take on a most basic level to begin sort of creating their own life deliberately?
So the first thing I would say to anybody who's interested or anybody who's curious and maybe just wants to disprove it, the first thing that they should do is sort of a three-step approach. So the first thing is self-observation. And so this is in an attitude of complete non-judgment. Be aware, be supported by the fact that this is a private enterprise. No one knows what's going on in your mind. It doesn't cost you anything. There are no restraints on you. And all you need to do is start to notice your reactions to life. So how do the things that are going on in your life make you feel? How do you experience life presently? And then once you are aware of what your typical kinds of reactions are, so for example, if somebody cuts you up in traffic, do you, flip them off? Do you scream? Do you quake? Are you calm? Whatever it might be, once you're aware, the next thing is clarity of thought. So you become aware of what it is you would want. And so when you know how it is you react and what it is you want to do, you have to start thinking about what you would have to feel to experience that. Now, that might be complicated for people to get their head around, first of all. So you can ask yourself the question, if this is what I wanted instead, how would having those things make me feel? And then you're bringing the law of reversibility into play, even without knowing it. But the absolute first thing to do is just notice your reactions to life and then think about how you would feel or how you would have to feel in order to have the things you want instead. And then the next thing is to practice, the third part is to practice detachment. And what that is just stop caring about the things that you care about at the moment. Literally stop caring. How do you care? Whenever you find yourself thinking about it, think about something else. Whenever you find yourself feeling it, try to deliberately think or feel something else in its place until you start to feel that you've lost interest. It doesn't mean you're not going to get up and go to work or relate to the people around you. It just means that your reactions, your instant reactions, not responses, reactions, start to go down a little bit. Sorry, I'm lacking the language, but what I mean,
that's right? Okay. You're doing great.
And so when you're detached from that, then you're going to start preoccupying yourself with those other feelings we talked about around about step 2. So you're beginning to think about, okay, people who have money, for example, always seem to be happy or always seem to be free. You don't need to try and go out and get the money first or the partner first or the job first. What you need to do is just focus on those feelings and start to notice things that are different in your life that are showing up as a result of you feeling differently about things. And that's what happens to me. Can I share just a very, very quick story, Will?
Please.
Okay, so my sister and I, we talk about this stuff all the time. And I'm saying, okay, I'm in such a good mood. I'm feeling really good about money. Things are falling. I found this great property, cost me next to nothing. I'm having a really great time. Down to the fact where I tell people, instead of thinking about manifesting, just think about your mood, because the stuff that confirms your mood begins to show up. So I'm setting up my office space, and I want a desk, and I got the shelving and whatever. And I go on Amazon, I see a beautiful desk, I order it, and then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to spend this money, right? I don't need to spend this money. My dining table's working just as well as a desk, whatever. While I'm canceling my Amazon order, I get an email from work with a link to the desk I just looked at on Amazon saying, do you want this desk?
Oh my God. That's an unusually specific example, but.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool because it was the exact same desk that I just looked at. And people say, oh, that's a coincidence. That's fine. So what I say to people is, let that be a coincidence. But why don't you try it and see what kind of coincidences show up for you?
I actually, in my book, Fearless Writing, I talk about coincidence, and I'm like, I'm not interested in it, because here's the thing about luck and coincidence that I'm not interested in. It means I have no role in it. I am only interested in what role I have. And so if something looks like a coincidence, I try to say, well, how did I behave around that coincidence that's different from those other coincidences? And I always notice a similarity in terms of my openness, my not trying to control everything, my good mood. So you can call it whatever you want. But I always want to know my role in my life. Like, how did because I'm there, I must have had some part in it. I don't buy the great dice being tossed somewhere that I just happened to fall for me. I'm not interested. I'm not. All right. Well, Kate, man, I could talk to you for a long, long time, but that's not this show. So, you're many things. You're a teacher, you're a writer, you're a lawyer, you're good. But we're talking about writing. Let me ask you this. In relation to your work, I always ask writers, what did writing teach you? But when you think about writing is in relation to just the work you do, what did it teach you about how did the writing further your understanding of the work you do?
It was amazing having it written down and not being aware of what I was writing. I was able to go back and see how I changed and how my experiences had changed as I began to change and get deeper into this work. So if anything, it showed me that I was right about many things. It gave me a lot of confidence in what I knew. And it showed me that my approach was right, which my approach always is and always will be, that I have confidence in the unseen more than I have in the seen, in the things that we call tangible. Right. So if it taught me anything, it taught me that what I believe in is absolutely real. And so I'm inspired to continue living as I live.